Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Series. Today my guest is Tamara Hawk. Tamara is a psychic medium and energy worker. She helps people realize their soul's purpose, align with their higher self, and connect with loved ones on the other side. Welcome, Tamara.
Hi, happy to be here, Bev.
Happy to have you. Tamara, my first question for you is, when did you first realize that there's more to life than what we can see and feel out here in the material world?
Probably when I was a little kid. I had what I thought were imaginary friends because everybody told me like that's what they called them, right? And there was three of them, Casper, Jake, and Sam, and they're still with me. So I guess they're not so imaginary.
I guess
Oh, but yeah, so it was when I was a little kid,
not.
right?
Okay,
But I didn't realize that it was different when I was a little kid, of course, right?
awesome.
Yeah.
And did you start seeing like dead people and stuff like that when you were a kid, or did any of that scare you?
Um, no, maybe when I was a teenager, because I guess when I first went to school, like grade one, two, three, like they kind of train it out of you, right? And they
Mm,
have you ignore all of that, right? So it was just less noticeable for a time, I guess. But when I was around 14, 15, in around there, my aunt had said to me, like, do a reading for me. And I was like, I can't do that, right? Like, because it had been shut down so much. And she encouraged me. So I did. And sure enough, like it just started flowing like crazy. I was brought up Roman Catholic. So a lot of times when I would see things, I'd get quite scared because the fear of everything was put into me.
exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I got over that eventually, but the programming is strong when you uh,
Yeah.
get that. But I don't remember being like super terrified of stuff, right? Like,
What kind of a reading did you do for your aunt?
that was psychometry, which is because she wanted me to bring it back out because she knew that I had gifts and that I hadn't really been paying attention. So she gave me, I can't remember, a ring or a chain or something, and said, here, try this. And so I did. And with the tool of psychometry. And then over the years, it's like I would have friends walk up to me in the pub or whatever, and they'd go to hand me something, and I'd get all the information before I even touched it. I'd get it while they were walking over to me. So, yeah, I don't.
Information about their people on the other side or about their lives or
Um, well, if somebody had an intention to ask me a question and they were going to walk over and hand me something to read, it was their intention for me to answer that question, and I would start getting the answers, right?
ah,
But I would still hold whatever it was they had because I didn't want people to be scared of me.
right.
Well, really, like just knowing things about them or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. And for the most part, I try not to, I'm not nosy. Like I don't read random people, right? Like the ones that I could read were the ones that were coming over to hand me something. Like they were already open wanting an answer.
Right. They had
But
the intention.
right, like I don't walk around the neighborhood trying to read people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you walk around the neighborhood and see random things?
Um,
Like we're sitting here
Mostly,
talking. Would my could my grandmother show up here and if she did, would you see her? And what's the etiquette? Would you tell me?
okay. So for the most part, I used to say, oh, I can turn it off. And then I realized I don't really turn it off. I more ignore it. Right. And like a good example would be if you and I went to a grocery store in a car And I was going to run in and get something and come back. And you were waiting in the car. And I came back and you said, oh, who was in the grocery store? What were they wearing? What did they look like? And I'd be like, I don't know. There's all kinds of people in the store, right? I wasn't looking at them. It was just a crowd, right? And I kind of liken it to that. Like for the most
Yeah.
part, it's like if I look, there's usually something there, but I'm not looking, right? Like it's it's hard to describe, but it's just another sense,
Mm.
right? So much like hearing, or like lots of parents, their kids can be screaming, playing. They got 5 kids and they're making all kinds of noise. The parents don't hear it because they're so used to it, they tune it out. And I think that's just how I operate too, right? A few months ago, I was walking through the park and bumped into one of my neighbors that had lost her husband. And I he did actually say some stuff to her
Oh,
through me. Um, and I told her because she knew who I was, she knew what I did, right? I've been sitting in a dentist chair and the hygienist's brother came through. I didn't say anything, right? Like,
well, I mean, unless he has like an urgent message for her or something, or I
right?
don't know,
Like,
like,
like to me, it's intrusive to be reading other people, right? And it's like you probably have all kinds of dead people around you, but I'm paying no mind,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's all background noise until I look.
So the fact is, we're walking around here, and there are people around us, most likely.
Oh, absolutely. Right?
And
Like it's if somebody comes to me for an appointment wanting to talk to dead people, there's always somebody there, right? Like
yeah.
there's always somebody. Um, yeah. And
But even if we haven't come to you for a reading, we're just walking down the street, what's the probability that there are people around us that we can't see?
very,
Okay.
very
Yeah.
probably. Um, yeah, like the neighbor in the park where I gave her a message, I knew her. Like I knew that neighbor, right?
Yeah.
There's been times where I'm out for lunch with a friend and they have somebody come through. I would tell them they're
Yeah.
my friend. They know
Exactly.
who I am and what I do, right? So yeah,
Got
I
it.
you wouldn't catch me walking into a coffee shop saying, "Hey, everybody,"
Right. Walking up to a perfect stranger.
yeah.
Gotcha. So when you are doing it intentionally, somebody comes to your office or you meet with someone to do a reading, do you have any sort of ritual, like Tyler Henry with the scribbles or anything like that, or they just come?
Um, yeah, I don't really have a ritual. I do kind of write stuff down. If it's a phone reading, when I go to sit and focus ahead of time, I start writing things down as it starts coming in. And then like before I phone the person. Um, most of the time for an in-person reading, I just kind of lean forward on my knees like this. And I close my eyes for a second and see what comes in. And then I just
Oh,
sharing.
wow. So how did these messages come through? Is it something you hear or feel or
Okay. Interestingly enough, it comes through all ways. Sometimes I just know things, right? It's like if somebody were to say 2 + 2 and you blurt out 4 because you just know it. So sometimes it's like that where I just know it.
good analogy?
Yeah, like it's just you just automatically know it. Sometimes I get words like in my head. Um, I actually like those because then I can just repeat them exactly, right?
No interpretation needed.
Exactly. No interpretation required. I just repeat the words I'm hearing, right? Sometimes I'll get feelings, right? whether it's an emotional feeling or if there's a feeling in my body, right? Like somebody who died of a heart attack, maybe I'll be feeling something in my chest, or I can't breathe, or
Oh, okay.
sometimes it's feelings. And yeah, like it's all different ways, and it's always kind of unique. Like
Interesting.
people are like, how do you know? And I'm like, I don't know how I know, right? For me, it's just another sense, right? Like seeing with your eyes.
Yeah. Um, so you talk about your peeps quite a bit. I know on your videos and on your website.
Yeah.
Tell us, who are your peeps?
Okay. Okay, so we all have eh, helpers, friends, whatever around us. Okay. So the reason I say my peeps is because of my husband, my late husband,
Okay.
because I have, like I say, I've got my guides, there's angels around, there's dead people around, there's my own connection to my higher self, right? And it's all energy. But my husband used to say to me, if he had a question about something, he'd say, just ask your peeps. And he said that all the time, right? He'd want to know something and he'd say, can you ask your peeps? And I thought, is that ever an easy way to say it? Right. So that's why it's my peeps, because it encompasses all of them, all of everything,
E-
right? Including my
Exactly.
own higher self, or sometimes it's even the higher self of who I'm talking to. Like, yeah, like for my husband, if it was a question about him and it was his higher self, that was still kind of my peeps, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So your peeps can be, they're all sorts of things. They're guides, they're higher self, they're guardian angels, they're all those things exist and speak in a way.
Yeah. And higher self.
Recognizing that this is happening, hearing yourself saying these things, and understanding where it's coming from.
Pay attention to what those thoughts are, like in a really big way. Like you need to be paying attention to what you're thinking most of the time. Okay.